segue from one show right into the other, friends, confidants, people I hardly know. Who the hell are you? I'm Dan Bespris, at Dan Bespris on social media. This is Old Man Squad, fantasy basketball. You know, there's this moment, and this is, I guess, for the folks that are watching, there's that moment at the beginning where I'm trying to bring the volume down, and in StreamYard, you have to, like, drag a slider, so you guys are probably watching my eyes dart back and forth like a lunatic. A great advantage to listening to the audio version of the pod. You don't have to stare at me looking like a stupid. Follow me on Twitter, at Dan Bespris, DanBesbris. Follow Old Man Squad on Twitter. It's Old Man Squad. It'll follow you back. It will. I'm in the process of doing that while I'm waiting for files to upload these days. That's the easy time to do it. Today, this is show number 2 on Monday. Hi, everyone. Hope you've all had a chance to listen to our big weekend recap show, the first reverse chronological lightning round Monday show of this season. This is our big Monday look ahead. So please hit that like button, subscribe, follow on social, drop the 5-star review. You guys know the drill by now, but every single one of you doing this every single little time actually matters a lot. I cannot tell you guys how unbelievably grateful I am of how things are going so far. I talk about it with my children. They don't care. My son wants to do YouTube shows. Obviously, we're not going to do those publicly, but he's like, but then together we can have like 4,703 subscribers because grandmas are going to, yeah, I know. But they don't actually really care when I'm talking about this, but you guys are amazing. Thank you for all of that. I put the wrong page up on the screen here. This is not supposed to start on this one. So apologies. I got ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. This is Fantasy Basketball Must Watch Monday. Week 2 begins with a sizable 11-game card, and quite a few teams that still have fantasy stuff in flux are playing tonight. And we're going to go through them, let you guys know what I'm watching for in the ball games, what things might surprise me, what might not, and then what we do with that information so you don't have to wait all the way until our recap show in the morning to know how to use the things we're watching for. This is an extraordinarily important part of the season-long fantasy grind, is understanding, especially for first-come, first-serve leagues, but also all of them, because, like, I'll have Twitter threads about things that are happening tonight, but if you're trying to make a fab decision, if you're trying to decide on how much to bid on a player or something during the overnight, this is a show that's going to let you know how much I do or don't believe in certain things and what we do with that information. So let's try to make it actionable. Let's talk Indiana Pacers. We're going to go through this chronologically tonight. Tyrese Halliburton's buy low window has to be the biggest story there. He's been terrible, flat out awful to start the year. And I don't know how long that's going to last because he's still Tyrese Halliburton. He didn't just magically become bad at basketball. He's good. And at some point, the good is going to take over. It's just crazy how the small sample size being the first few games of the season is so eye-popping. For a lot of these guys, if they had a few games, well, these Halliburton games, if you had 2 or 3 in a row like this, you'd notice all the time. But like, we're going to talk about Tobias Harris in a second. If he had 3 games like this in January, I don't think we'd even bat an eye. But it's day 1, and he's on a new team, so there's a little bit more there. But you guys get my meaning. The Magic, not much, really. Whatever we've said about Paolo is how we feel about Paolo. Franz looks pretty good so far. Jalen Suggs got in the mix in his last ball game. KCP's not going to do enough. Anthony Black is playing a little bit better, but probably not enough. Center. We're always watching the centers there, but feh. Hey, basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA's back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, bet online as you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every single game matters, and that is why BetOnline has every stat, every matchup breakdown, and live odds. That's fun to bet on during the games. You can bet right into a run when a team's going on a 12-0 run. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football to the World Series to hockey, political props. Heaven forbid. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here. The Pistons, Tobias Harris's buy low window is one of the things I'm watching. I actually kind of liked what he did in their last ball game, getting in the mix more with rebounding and passing and defending. because the shot's going to drop at some point here. And then Jaden Ivey, has he taken a big leap? And if so, what does it mean? Because on the recap show, we talked a little bit about Ivey in terms of, like, can he fix both field goal and free throw at the same time? My expectation is no, but even fixing one of those things makes him a head-to-head target. Maybe not roto, because you don't want to pile up a bad percentage over an entire year. The math there, just like the math of a rank board in roto, is very translatable. Not as much with head-to-head, because you got to move categories around. The Miami Heat, is Nikola Jovic the fifth Heatle? Wanted to use that for the first time in a long while. And does it matter is another good follow-up question there. Like, is there enough for a fifth Heatle? Now, bearing in mind, of course, that, Jimmy Butler prefers to be more of a pass guy. Like, he'll take over when he has to, but he wants to get these other guys involved. And so, is Jovic going to do enough in boards, assists, steals, blocks, threes, that kind of stuff to overcome the fact that he is a fifth offensive option? Probably not, but maybe. Washington Wizards, is it Bilal season? Shout out to former Roto World stud Jared Johnson. I don't know if you watch this show, Jared, but hi. Hey, bud. He's a big Bilal guy. He tried to talk me into him last year, and I said, not yet. Not yet. Maybe next year. And I think we might be there. He's looked really good so far. The Wizards are giving him all he can handle. And then should we buy on Alex Sarr right now? He's actually a free agent in a couple of leagues that I'm in, which kind of surprised me because he feels like just the kind of rookie that teams want to grab early with the expectation of a long-term stash. But if they're going to give him 25 minutes out of the shoot and just let him figure it out on the fly, he blocks enough shots and he can step out. He'll try a three-pointer every now and again, and he'll rebound. And, like, there's enough stuff there that he can unruin his rookie numbers. Because right now, the percentages are not good. And I don't know that they're going to be good. But he may be able to do enough to kind of just overweight that. Where a lot of guys struggle. If the percentages aren't good, the other stuff isn't going to be enough to counterbalance it. But, like, if you find a guy that's going to get you multiple defensive stats a game and score and rebound and hit some threes and pass a little bit, and, like, I think you should probably be sitting on Alex Sarr. I didn't draft him many places because you guys know me. I very rarely take the shot on the rookie if there's a proven commodity on the board. But, like, if you go back to my buckets, my rank buckets, I have Sarr in the same bucket with Al Horford. So different. Horford, you're going to get a big first half of the year and then nothing. Not nothing. Something, but not as much. And I've got him in there with Bobby Portis, who I think is going to plod along at like a top 90 clip. But, like, Sarr, you're probably going to get this 150, 160, 170 type of rank range for stretches. And then all of a sudden, things are going to start clicking, and he's going to past a lot of these dudes. So, Roto, sit on him. Unless you need blocks, you can play him. Head-to-head, you just call it like an active stash, basically. I'm very surprised he's not more universally rostered. The hell were we talking about? We're talking about going to the next page here on the YouTubes. Jalen Johnson, huge buy low. Huge buy low. His field goal and free throw percent are disastrous. His turnovers so far are disastrous. We know well enough to know this is not who he's going to be. Anybody hitting the panic button, I will take him off of your hands. He's going to be a fourth rounder this year. I would think at the absolute worst. So if you can get him for a fifth, you bake in some value there. And if you have to go get him for a fourth, I think I'd probably do it too. Will DeAndre Hunter play? He's questionable. I only ask that because I picked him up in one or two spots at the end of last week, and then he got ruled out with whatever it was, knee stuff, I think, over the weekend. But he was looking pretty good, especially with Bogdan Bogdanovic dealing with a weird hamstring situation. There's an opening there. And then we got word a couple minutes before doing this show that Onyeka Okongwu was out. And it's not so much that it changes anything. Like, he'll miss a game here and there, and that's fine. Just sort of swallow that down and be okay with it. It's more of, is Clint Capela now a plug and play. I know he's the starter, but he technically the backup center that you play when the quote-unquote starting, the guy getting more minutes, in this case Okongwu, is out. And I'm kind of leaning towards yes on the answer to that question. For the Bucks, can Bobby Portis maintain top 90 or better? I think yes this year, if you want my humble opinion on that. I don't know for sure, but I think yes. We'll see what Middleton's return eventually does to, well, Dame also, but Portis too, because he needs to be able to jack up shots when he gets into the game. Celtics, hey, what's up with Drew? Sorry, what's up with Drew? Yeah, that reminds me of when Billy Hamilton was on the Bakersfield Blaze. We're not going to go down this path. It was just, he talked about as fast as he ran. Man, that kid was hard to understand. What is up with Drew Holiday right now? I think he's just on a really, really, really good team, and there are going to be games where he's not needed. But it'll be fine, because we saw what he was last year when they had more options. So it'll level off. Is it a buy low? Not really, because he was getting drafted at like 80, 85 anyway. So what are you going to do? Like trade in a flyer who's looked pretty good so far? I don't know. Those guys might end up around the same. Because if you drafted Drew at 80, you probably thought he was going to be in the 70s. If you drafted someone at 115, you were probably hoping they might creep up towards the 70s too. Because you get into that weird window there on draft night where the guy's going near 80. You're like, well, I could take a crazy flyer here, but I think I'd rather just take the guy that I know is going to safely chunk along close to his ADP. And then later, you're like, I don't want a guy who's chunking along near his ADP. I want to take a shot. Shot. Nuggets. Can Christian Brown do it 3 times in a row? I say probably not. But I do have him on some rosters, so I'm hoping I'm wrong. Grady Dick. How many times will Dan make Grady Dick jokes on the podcast this year? Too many to count. His stream status, the Dick stream, really comes down to just when Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett are back. It's as simple as that. If either one of those guys returns, pull Dick out of your lineup. The Cleveland Cavaliers, nothing. They got 4 strong plays, and nothing else matters. And, I mean, you can get into, like, the streaming stuff, but that's not what this show is about. Nightly, plop a guy in kind of streams. We'll get into that with the injury replacement and whatnot. But, like, it's an 11-game card, so how much streaming are you really doing today? And we talked about all of this on the Week 2 preview show, which came out on Saturday and is still very much available on all of our pod and video channels. So don't worry about that right now. I beg of you. The Knicks, there's nothing really to watch here. They've got a depth problem in New York, but all 5 starters are fantasy startable in some capacity. But I did put down, despite all of your angry tweets after one game, Cat seems fine. The Rockets, Amen Thompson is a tough hold right now. A tough hold. I generally preach patience in situations in fantasy. And I'm going to preach patience here as well, because we know from the preseason that when anybody goes down for the Rockets, Amen Thompson's the guy who gets a bump. No one's gone down yet, and I don't know when the first one's going to be. But we're basically seeing a worst-case scenario right now, which is a fully healthy Rockets roster. And it could be another reserve that goes down, where Amen gets an extra 3 or 4 minutes instead of like an extra 8 or 9. There's a lot of different ways that he can slide into positive fantasy value. And unfortunately, it's not happening right now. So Roto, bench him, head-to-head, close your eyes, cross your fingers, pray, whatever, and try to stick it out. If nothing good happens over the next 2 weeks, I think I'll allow us to go somewhere else. But we know the talent on this dude is just too much. Spurs, I still have a few questions on. They've only played 2 games, so that's part of why we still have more questions. First is Chris Paul going to actually shoot ever a basketball? Because I like the assists so far, but I don't really like the lack of all other things. And I think at some point he will take a couple, but it's probably not going to be all that much. You're holding, though. Julian Champagny, is he worth a start in Roto? Because obviously in head-to-head, he's filling in for Devin Vassell. He's doing enough on that side. What about against a games cap? That's a coin flip. I think if you're down a few players and you don't want to fall too far behind the games cap, Champagny's worth a play. If you've got enough guys, if you've got 10 or 11 healthy dudes you trust, then I would say no. And then with Jeremy Sohan, he's almost like the flip side of this thing. If you pick him up in Roto, you're almost definitely not starting him night to night. Head to head, you are, and you're praying. And I remain very much in the I don't really know what we're going to get out of Sohan this year. I think if you have an empty spot on a Roto bench, like if you can throw someone in an IL pocket, Sohan's an interesting pickup because what if things start to click this year? You'll want to be in front of that. But also we know the free throws can be tough. The turnovers can sometimes be tough. The field goal percent can sometimes be tough, although it did seem like it got better. And then Chris Paul might help with that as well. So how does that math all aggregate here on Sohan? I don't really know. I think it's important. Every once in a while, I think it's important for an analyst to just be like, you know what? I don't know. And I got two teams. By the way, Sohan's one of them. The next team we're going to talk about here is kind of the other one, which is the Chicago Bulls. I don't really know what the Bulls are going to be this year. I don't know if they're going to be trying all year or if they're going to try to unload Vooch. And I don't know when Lonzo Ball is going to get enough minutes to matter. And I don't know how the Giddey, Kobe White, Zach LaVine backcourt situation is going to go on a night-to-night basis right now. At least it seems like LaVine and Vooch are like, nah, we're still the old goats. It's not you guys yet. Not your turn yet. But that can't possibly last all year, can it? So I mostly avoided Bulls, as you guys know. Patrick Williams, just keep him on sort of like the perma watch list, because if they play defenses that aren't as good as Oklahoma City, which they only play them one more time, thank goodness, then I guess there's a shot that they could all be decent, because we know the Bulls want to run and gun this year a bit more. Is that going to be enough for a Patrick Williams? Time will tell, and all you have to do for now, I believe, is watch list him. The Grizzlies, Scottie Pippen Jr., he's putting up huge numbers, but he's only playing like 22 minutes a ball game. It's really uncommon for a guard to be able to put up consistent fantasy value in 22 minutes a game. DeAnthony Melton was about the closest guy we've had in recent memory, and it was because of colossal steals numbers, which, by the way, Scottie Pippen Jr. could get some pretty good steals, but I don't think the assists are going to stay this high. At some point, reality is going to come crashing in, and that's why I'm only playing him for head-to-head right now, not using him against the games cap. Now, head-to-head stream, obviously, have at it. Anybody who's playing well is good for a head-to-head stream. You don't need me to tell you that. And then my other Grizzlies question is Marcus Smart a 12-teamer? I didn't like him on draft night. You guys heard me talk about that, and I'm still not into it. I drafted him in one or two spots because I badly needed steals at the very, very end, and I don't even know if that's going to work. Jazz got blown out in their last ball game, so I'm not overly concerned with that particular box score. But before I tell you what I am concerned about in Utah, let's take a quick break. What I am concerned about in Utah is that Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson seem to be butting heads for a minute bucket. That was not a thing that I was hoping would happen. I figured that it would be more of like a Clarkson, Sexton, Keontae George, three guys, two cups kind of thing. And instead, it's more like, Keontae, you just get to play no matter what sort of trash is going on. And Clarkson, Sexton, you guys are my scoring dudes. So is Sexton in trouble? I'm a little worried. I'm like 30% worried. For the Mavericks, these are not big things, but like, what is Clay going to look like when his energy level settles? Because it is going to settle. Right now, it's like, I'm on a new team. I got a lot to prove. Screw you, Warriors. I still have stuff in the tank. And then at some point, the tank's going to be like, no, you don't, Clay. I don't know when that's going to happen exactly. PJ Washington is actually the guy in the Mavericks I'm more interested in because he's off to a terrible shooting start. But sometimes that's the most interesting thing because no one's paying attention to the bad shooters after 1 week. Portland Trailblazers. Is Toumani Camara head-to-head only or roto as well? I'm leaning towards head-to-head only, The Blazers started a 5-7 stretch yesterday, so they continue to have a pretty good schedule starting today with 4 games over 6 remaining days, although there's actually quite a few teams that have that going on, so you don't have to go Blazers direction. But if you already have him, okay, great. What about Roto? Nah. And then Jeremy Grant. What do we think we can get for Jeremy Grant after his bodacious start to the year? My guess would be someone in the 60 to 90 range. Probably safer to aim towards the back end of that. But if you can get anyone in 75 that you know is a 75 range guy or better, you go do it. Problem is, those guys are like the ones that are known commodities are probably harder to get. You want to be looking for someone who was drafted at like 65 and is off to an abysmal start, which is like, well, let's see. Can we come up with someone here on the fly for a Jeremy Grant buy low, sell high match? I'm going to do a show on this probably tomorrow, provided Grant's value is roughly the same. So let's see who got drafted in the 6th round of this draft I'm looking at and is underperforming. Nick Claxton? Question mark. I don't know if you're going to be able to get. I don't think you're going to go higher than that. You're going to need another big week out of Jeremy Grant if you want to go any higher than that. Otherwise, I don't know that I want the guys that are underperforming from the 7th round. Michael Porter Jr.? Maybe that's the one. Can you get MPJ for Grant, you think? If you can, I think I would. I don't know if you can. I think we've got one more page. Yeah, we got one more page here, but it is not much. Kings, not much. Sabonis looked much better. Fox looked much better. DeMar seems like he's going to get plenty of shots. Keegan Murray seems like he's going to do enough, certainly. Not interested in Herter. Not interested in Monk outside of weird punt builds. Easy. Lakers, all 5 starters look great. The health of Jared Vanderbilt will be a factor, and we'll talk about that when we get to the burger board in about 30 seconds. But otherwise, everybody seems fine. And everybody's like, when is D'Angelo Russell going to start doing stuff? Well, 3rd game, he did it. He's still shooting 38% for the season so far. And that'll come up. And I also think the shots per game is going to come up. But guess what? They didn't really need him until the first half of this last one. And then LeBron went nuts. Lakers have a lot of options right now, but there's going to be a lot of fantasy value to go around. So stick with it. Everything's fine there. And then finally, the Suns. Any fears on Devin Booker? You guys know I'm down on Yusuf Nurkic. You don't need me to say that again. I feel like Booker's looked kind of pedestrian so far this year. And it's not just because he's shooting 43%. It's because he's taking 14 shots a game and only has 5 assists. Everything has come down so far for Book in a way that it frankly hasn't so much for Kevin Durant, who's taking 18 shots a game. Where's Beal at? Beal's at 13 shots a game. I almost feel like we just need the Suns to play frickin' faster. Yo, Royce O'Neal, you don't need to take that shot. I mean, he's only taken 5. And it's not like Tyus Jones is jacking up shots either. He's just been good at distributing the basket. He's only taken 8. But Jones, by the way, is number 41 so far. He looks like a great late grab. But I'm worried about Book. He is a buy low, but I don't think he's going to get to the middle of the 2nd round. Although I didn't think that to begin with. Figured he was going to take a drop off towards like the back end of the 2nd round, early 3rd, and felt like sort of a safe mid-2nd round pick because it wasn't going to be a mess. So there's a little bit of a buy low there. But I don't know that I would give up more than a 3rd rounder to get him for whatever the hell that's worth. And let's talk about the burger board. Not that many tonight, oddly enough. 11-game card, but a lot of the teams that have guys out are off this evening for whatever reason. I put Clint Capela on the burger board because I don't think Clint Capela is a fantasy player when Onyeka Okongwu is healthy. Although in Clint's defense, he's number 104 so far this year because he has 8 boards and 2.3 defensive stats. But he's been kind of gross. And 21 minutes long-term ain't going to be enough for Clint, especially as everybody else sort of settles into their spot. His numbers that he's putting up right now are, and the 1 steal per game probably doesn't hold. His numbers he's putting up right now are not top 100 numbers. But with Okongwu out, he should be able to get top 100 because you figure the minutes will be at least 25, 26, maybe more. So Capela, for me at least, is a burger board guy right now. Grady Dick is on the burger board. Clint, by the way, is a 1. I mean, maybe he's a 2 burger with Okongwu out. He's at least 1, maybe 2. Call it 1.5. Grady Dick is like a 1.5 burger, like 1 and a slider on the side with RJ and IQ both out, but they have to remain out. And we're still a number of hours away from game time, so monitor that situation. Julian Champagny, with Devin Vassell out, he's a 1 burger guy, but he's almost more like a 3/4 of a burger guy. And then Rui Hachimura, who, by the way, let me lay this out. He might end up being a full season play, but we don't know because to this point in his Lakers tenure, when Vanderbilt was healthy, neither one of those guys had enough fantasy value to succeed. Did Rui blitz past him with Vanderbilt out? It's quite conceivable. Because they're on an injury replacement board does not mean that they can't also be a full season guy. We just haven't seen it yet. This is not me saying the second Vanderbilt comes back, Rui's dead meat. What it is saying is, with Vanderbilt out, Rui's been awesome. We don't know when Jared's coming back anyway, so you don't have to worry about it for a bit. But just something to keep in the back of your mind. You don't need to pre-drop these kinds of guys. Now, with the other ones on the board here, like when RJ Barrett comes back, I think it's pretty clear that Grady Dick is not going to have enough fantasy value. And we're seeing it already. With Okongwu back, I don't think Clint Capela has enough fantasy value. But like with Rui, and that's the magic of the 2 burgers. Sometimes a guy from 2 burgers goes down to still playable, maybe barely. It's a discussion that sort of needs to be fleshed out a bit on maybe not a 20 to 30 minute preview episode, but the pre-drop versus the post-drop on guys coming back from injury and things that sort of surround that idea. All right, come find me over on social, guys. We got a lot left to do on Twitter today. We'll put up this stuff, by the way, if for those that are listening, if you want to see it, I'll have it out on Twitter, so that'll be an easy way to find it. If you're watching on YouTube, you obviously can just like bookmark this moment and go back to it. But all of this stuff is over on social at Dan Bespris. Like, rate, subscribe, all very important. Let's have some fun with a nice 11-game card. Remember to set those lineups, make your decisions. And go back and watch our weekly preview show if you want to know how to stream throughout this week and what players I do and don't trust that are currently injured. I am Dan Bespris for the Old Man Squad and Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Have a great Monday. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning with a Monday recap. Tuesday look ahead, probably mushed together, I would think, into one episode so that we can do, a little buy low and sell high action this week. Oh, yeah, we got work to do, baby. We got lots of shows coming up. I'll see you then.